This is GKW. Welcome to another edition of Good Karma Wrestling. Brian Rowitz is off this week, but back this week, our guy from ESPN 1000 in Chicago, Jonathan Hood. I'm Gabe Neitzel from ESPN Milwaukee. Excited to dive into all the things that happened in the world of wrestling this week. But just as a reminder, if you happen to be watching this on social media, if you happen to be watching this or listening to this, check us out on YouTube. We've got the video that goes along with it. Comment, subscribe, youtube.com/at Good Karma Wrestling. But where we begin, AEW does it once again. Third consecutive week, we're on Dynamite. They have a big free agent debut. It started with Will Ospreay. Last week, it was the Rainmaker, Kazuchika Okada. And last night, we all knew it was happening, and it was still exciting anyway. Mercedes Moné makes her AEW debut in Boston, part of Big Business. So, with these three big free agents in tow, my question to you to start the show, Jonathan, is this: who wins gold first in AEW? Is it Okada? Is it Moné? Or is it Will Ospreay?
Well, let's break all three down, because I think that when AEW has been bereft of real wins, I think they got three wins right here. They're having their own version of March Madness. They are. Because think about this. Last night in Boston, we get Mercedes Moné. And just like CM Punk in Chicago, it's the world's worst secret. We knew we know Moné was coming. And she gets out of Maybach. We don't see her. She has this music, which is a remix of the old Gunther theme, if you listen to it. Dun, 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 dun. A lot more record scratch, a lot more bass. That's the only thing. It's the old Gunther theme. That's exactly what I heard. Like, oh, is Gunther coming down? No, it's Moné with bass. She comes down, and guess what, Gabe? She looks like a star because she is. I know I know everyone on social is like, oh, she looks like, well, because she's a star. I mean, and so we're watching her come down the aisle. I mean, the crowd is rabid for her, and she gets a chance to have time to tell her story of everything she's gone through, and being in suburban Massachusetts, learning how to wrestle, everything that she's gone through. And the crowd was patient. They listened to her. They rooted for her and chant CEO the entire time. And that, I'm very, very happy for her, because there's so many matchups. We have documented on GKW how many great matches that she could have with this roster. I mean, and also gave you a little bit of DMD with a little CEO with the head. So I think that match could be something too.
So I mentioned this last week when you were off, but they did it again this week with Dynamite. Very rarely, I think, in the first 4 or 5 years of AEW, have they kind of had a through line of revisiting stories or different stories to make it feel bigger throughout the course of a Dynamite or a Collision. Usually it's like, okay, this part of the show is this part of the show is this. And it's just kind of, okay, this is how we go. And they did it last week, and they did it again last night with Mercedes Moné, where she kicks off the show. Then you see her right before the main event as well, as she introduced herself to Riho. Yeah. And then she comes out for the save at the end. So you almost have that through line of, okay, this is how you make people feel bigger on your show, is you have multiple segments for them. And Mercedes Moné, as you mentioned, I mean, she's a star. Like, she is one of these just crossover, she's already done the Hollywood stuff, by the way. I mean, she's been in The Mandalorian, which is a huge, Disney Plus series and part of the Star Wars universe and that whole thing. So, like, she's dipped her toe. Like, she clearly has the charisma, clearly has all those things. I don't know if she's going to be the first to win a championship, because I don't know where she slots in quite yet, because she makes a save last night. It seems like Willow is on the track for the TBS title. Deonna Purrazzo is still looks like going to be involved in the women's world title picture with Toni Storm. So only having 2 championships for her to chase after, it doesn't seem like it's going to be there, unless, because I feel like a lot of her best work in WWE was as a heel. But when you come back after being gone from the American wrestling scene, because she certainly did the stuff with New Japan, like, you're going to be a babyface right away, right? Like, we talked about this when AEW did it with Punk, and even with WWE, like, there's only, like, they're going to be getting a babyface reaction for a while, so you have to wait before you can turn them heel. If she turns on Willow, then she becomes, the heel, and then can chase after the TBS title or whatever. So even though she's certainly, I think, the biggest free agent signing of this because of her star power, I don't think she's going to be the first to win a championship.
I think it makes sense, Gabe, to build up equity with the AEW audience and also build up her wrestling resume in AEW. Look, she's already a star, as we've documented, but I think that her having banger matches and her not being, a champion right away is fine. She doesn't have to be a champion in 2024 because people will still be behind her. The CEO chant's already built in. They know who she is. So I just look forward to the matches.
I hope she's not a champion in 2024 because if she's not,
yeah,
she's still going to be featured. She is Mercedes Moné, right? Like, I mean, and if she's not featured, then somebody screwed up. But if she's not a champion, she's still going to be featured. And that just means they're telling more stories within the AEW women's division, which they need to do because of how stacked that division is.
Yeah, that's my point. Her title is CEO. That's her championship. Her championship is CEO and the CEO chance. She doesn't need a belt to try to figure out who she is because we know who she is. And so I think that's important. So I would say that Mercedes Moné, there's no need to rush a championship on her because that means she's cutting the line of all of these wrestlers in ROH and AEW and put her right to the top. That's a mistake. It's a mistake in the locker room and something that you don't have to do. But then you get to Okada. And how unusual was this, right? Okada comes out here as one of the biggest stars in the world of professional wrestling. Gabe, he's if he's top five, even if he's five, he's top five. But he's one of the biggest names in the business. He comes out there, and he is a heel with the Young Bucks. He's part of the New Elite. Unusual because you think Okada would come out there as the babyface he's been for a long time, but it puts a little bit of an arc on his character, a little bit of difference on his character, aligning himself with the EVPs. Could Okada be a champion? Yeah, as long as it's not a trios title, not that lame shit. Not that. No, absolutely not. Okada is likely to be a champion, but again, it all depends on storytelling, right? It could be the Young Bucks pushing Okada into one of these championships. But Okada is a guy that can't be underneath, and he can't be like this trios champion. He's got to be able to have banger matches moving forward because he's a big bout machine.
Next week on GKW, wrestling partnerships that lasted longer than the Bang Bang Scissor Gang. Right? Well, what a disaster that was.
I'm watching. I'm like, what the hell was this for? It's so ridiculous. Right? We said at the time, this is stupid.
Yeah. Well, at least they came to the realization it was stupid and cut it loose. But who knows what's happening with the trios thing. But I think Okada is going to be the first one to win gold. Just because I feel like with his heel character and with Nicholas and Matthew Jackson playing up this, hey, we're EVPs role, like them putting it's probably not going to be the international, right? He gets a match for the Continental, but you have the TNT. Like, there's just so many more opportunities on the men's side right now. I don't think it's going to be a trios thing. I mean, maybe they go that direction, but it kind of seems, I don't know if that's going to be a unification, if that's what they're going to end up doing with the ROH titles and the AEW trios championships, and they go after those again. But it seems like with all these other singles championships on the men's side, like, maybe Okada is the one to take the championship off of Eddie Kingston and become the continental champion of AEW. It just seems like him walking around with a championship that his friends, the EVPs, helped him get is just going to be a part of the story that they're going to eventually build to hopefully Kenny Omega coming back.
Let me ask you, what's more important today for AEW? Because there's a lot of positives going on in this company. You can tell that there's been a little bit of a shift. You can see how the show is developed. You can see the new logo, the new dashers, just all this stuff that's around the production of AEW has changed. But what's more important? Is it to tell more stories with new wrestlers or to put championships on these said wrestlers? Think about it.
I mean, it's the old wrestling question, right?
Yeah.
So when I juxtapose it and I think about what's happening in WWE and WWE getting as hot as it's gotten now, a big part of that is Roman Reigns, who you are telling amazing stories with, but because also he's the champion, right? Like, if you're telling your best stories with your best people, like those stories are going to come to the front and people are going to gravitate towards them. So I think you're telling meaningful stories, but a lot of the times those stories, the ending is the people you care about winning championships, right? Like, that's ultimately what you're caring about because you're investing in these, just like the best stories that you have of your own sports teams, whoever you're rooting for. they end with your team winning a championship. Like those are the best ones, right? So I think it's a combination of telling really good stories, but those stories end up with whoever the hero is victorious, or whatever story you happen to be telling. Kind of like, again, WWE's done with the Bloodline and Roman.
You know what? And I'm glad when you and I are doing this, because we talk so much sports all the time, and we can relate everything we talk as far as sports conversation to wrestling.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you and I, as fans of our teams and of
Mm-hmm.
sports, we are into the chase. If you're a Bucks fan, a Milwaukee Bucks fan, you just want to say, you know what happened in the past happened in the past. But the chase for Giannis to win a second championship, that's paramount to what's happening with this team. Everyone's talking about the Celtics, all the best team in the NBA. But you know what? The Bucks are chasing them down too, and they want a second championship. So ultimately, the story is not crown the Bucks, but the Bucks chase to be able to exactly where the Boston Celtics are, because you feel like, you know what, if the Bucks get there, if they win the East, they could take out Minnesota, they could take out, Oklahoma City or one of the upper, or Denver. They're battle tested. They had to fire their coach and it was start to a rocky start, but you know what, they're going to find a way. Same thing in wrestling, right? With Okada and Monet, and we're going to get to Ospreay in a second. It's about the chase. It's not about crowning the champion just because you see him on your TV. It's about taking us up. When we say story, we also mean chase.
Yes.
It's funny, Roman Reigns and the Bloodline storyline's way up here. But what's also up here? Cody chasing for the title. Drew McIntyre chasing for Seth's championship. All these guys, Sami Zayn in the mix.
Well, but in AEW, it's Swerve chasing for the title with Samoa.
Yes, where Swerve's here and Samoa Joe might be a little down. But you understand the point, though. The chase. That's the whole thing of this, of like sports and sports entertainment. It's about, hey, we know who the champion is, but who's next? The chase is the thing that grabs you and it hooks you.
Yeah, it always has been. Like those have more recently, right? The biggest chase, other than Cody more recently, is, Bryan, WrestleMania, right? Like he was about the chase. And yes, he was crowned at WrestleMania. Unfortunately, he was injured and those things happened afterwards. But the fun part of that was the chase of Bryan Danielson, of winning against Triple H, and then going to the main event and like you said, the chase, those are the ones you always remember. The chase of Mick Foley, going back to the days of the Attitude Era. So that's always what's been, been going on with in the world of professional wrestling.
That's no question about that. So I think for Okada, because he's aligned with the EVPs, keep telling stories. We're going to see some great matches with Okada anyway. I know that he and Eddie Kingston are on a collision course, but I don't need to have Okada be draped in gold. I've seen that my entire wrestling life with Okada wrestling. But then there's Ospreay. And boy, let me tell you, swoon, baby, swoon. Look at Ospreay. Gabe Neitzel. He gets in front of that Boston audience. And the criticism with Ospreay was not a very good promo because he curses every third word. Well, yeah, when you're in the Indies and in UK, you could do that. But Ospreay was a supreme babyface. You think Mercedes Moné got this big ovation? What about Ospreay? Shivani's there with the microphone, and there's Ospreay just loving that crowd. White meat babyface. He was fantastic, to make me think that at some point in time, that guy could be the face of AEW. I look forward to seeing that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm 100% there with you, Jay Hood, and but it seems like he's going to have all these dream matches first, right? Like he's doing the thing with Bryan Danielson. They had the promo on Collision, comes out with the promo last night and was fantastic once again. I don't know if he's checking these dream matches off first, because it seems like, again, to be not to diminish the international championship and all the things that Orange Cassidy did to really build that up, and now Roderick Strong has that, or the Continental. It seems like all those other ones are kind of held on to at this point. Maybe Ospreay. I know it's Browitz's dream for Ospreay versus Swerve at Wembley coming up here in a little in the fall.
Yeah,
maybe we end up getting that. Who knows? But it's a situation where everything else is kind of taken up. So Will Ospreay's the best in-ring wrestler in the world. So let's just give him a bunch of dream matches where he's stealing the show every time they end up having a pay-per-view until you can get to a point where it makes sense, where he can begin that chase and he becomes the one that you really are invested in.
So as I go back through my notes from previous shows, see if I can go on memory with this. With Will Ospreay, Gabe, it's been Ospreay against Michael Oko for the British Championship. It has been Will Ospreay against was it Josh Alexander and on Impact, and I know that he had a great match against Takeshita in AEW, and then this latest matchup that he had within the Don Callis family. So I've seen I've seen 4 great matches already from Ospreay, and we're not even in April yet. I mean, here's a guy here that says I'm a TNA kid, and it's like, oh, you love TNA? If I'm TNA, I would have given him the farm to stay for another year if you could. TNA is not; you don't have the infrastructure for that. But I've seen 4 banger matches already from Ospreay, and the personality is something that is paramount for him because we haven't seen him loved like this on a national stage. And if you're Triple H, you're kicking your own ass. You're watching that Dynamite from Boston. You're like, jeez, I didn't know he could talk like that on the stick.
Well, so in the Bruv thing's almost become endearing because I know I was critical. I was critical when he gave the "I've got stepkids" Bruv promo last year, right? Like I'm like, again, you're kind of you're stealing somebody else's gimmick, right? Like Heath Slater, we know he's got kids. So now you're stealing somebody else's gimmick. And the way he just kept saying Bruv, but now they've got the Bruv shirts. He's leaning into it. The crowd seems to be behind it. And we talked about Mercedes and how because she is a star. And it goes further beyond the world of professional wrestling. But Ospreay's in command. He is in between those ropes. He is 100% in command. And it's unbelievable to watch.
That, what he is, he's a microcosm of 2024 professional wrestling. Like Roman Reigns does it his way, again, talk him in the building, has great matches when he needs to. He turns it on when he needs to. Will Ospreay is just a million miles an hour to the point where I'm wondering, will there ever be a time in AEW where they say, hey, Ospreay, need a tight 5. Can you give me a like impossible. I don't think he'd give you a tight 5.
Well, I think that's why Tony's supposed to be out there, right? Like Schiavone's supposed to be like somehow hurting and reeling him in when he starts going too far off the handle.
I mean, and the ring too. Like I don't think there's a squash match in a Will Ospreay's arsenal. I don't think he can do that.
No, absolutely not.
He's got to give me 30 moves first before but I'm just so impressed with him. And listen, if AEW really wants to be different from WWE, Will Ospreay is exactly what you're talking about right there. That is different than, less than, different than, better than. Will Ospreay in that position as a top guy, I think that he's going to be the first guy to win a championship. That's my answer to it.
I went with Okada. You went with Ospreay. Either way, obviously exciting times are ahead for AEW with these free agents that they have signed. We shift now back to WWE with number 1 in our 3 count. The other top 3 stories of professional wrestling we want to talk about here tonight on GKW. And as Cody said on Monday Night Raw, he got Rock, gave him the receipt, using the wrestling term, slapped him back on SmackDown. Which brings me to this question, Jay Hood. Is Rock versus Cody more interesting than Rock versus Roman? Because, Rock versus Roman was supposedly the reason that The Rock came back, to have this match at WrestleMania. They end up having to pivot. Now you have this tag match. And now WWE reportedly excited because Rock's going to be around and maybe come back and eventually have this Rock versus Roman match. However, with the storytelling currently going on, is Rock versus Cody more interesting than Rock versus Roman?
As we sit here today on the precipice of WrestleMania, Rock versus Cody is a more interesting match for me as we sit here today. And the reason why is because of those two going back and forth on social media and face-to-face. So when you see Cody being able to rise up and be able to slap The Rock, the slap heard around the world, holy cow. We knew that Cody Rhodes gets emotional when you mention his dad, but when you had The Rock saying that you're pretty much illegitimate or you were a mistake, you weren't supposed to be here because Kel Rhodes is younger than you, and Dustin Rhodes is 12 to 15 years older than you. You are a mistake. Dusty made a mistake. You weren't supposed to be here. I mean, there's a reason to be able to do this, right? In the big slap. So for me, Rock, there's more money for me into Cody versus Rock because of how they've been going back and forth. Now, Rock versus Roman, I think, as you mentioned, eventually we're going to get that match anyway. That'll be the blow off, I think, for Rock, possibly in his career.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the last match, that's a great way to go out, to put Roman over, or however that's going to go. I think that because Rock is going to be 52 by the time that match happens, I think that that's a good way for Rock to go out. But the money to me is Rock against Cody. I mean, anytime that you have one guy that has a 21-minute promo, 21-minute promo with the palm trees swaying in the backdrop, right? The Rock. 15 minutes initially. There's, I'm going to add another.
You know what? That's not good enough. I need more.
How about another 6? How about that? And then go after, and then again, just verbally, just eviscerate Cody and Dave LaGreca and everybody and Seth Rollins. It's like, oh my God. And then for Cody to be able to fire back. So I think that that's the money right there for me.
Yeah, I'm 100% there with you. And that's not to say that Rock versus Roman isn't interesting, because it is. Like, it's bridging the gap. Anytime they've done these, it's almost taking these generational bouts that they've done, and Rock has always seemingly been involved with, at least in the last 20 years, like when they did Rock versus Hollywood Hulk Hogan, and then they did Rock versus Cena, and now Rock versus Roman. Like, whenever they've done those, they've done a good job of telling a story and it's become interesting. This takes it to another level because it's family. Right? It's an actual, they're actually related, and that's what kind of makes it a little bit more fun. So that's certainly still interesting, but they're doing a better job telling Rock versus Cody. Those are the two going toe to toe each and every week. Somehow Roman, I guess it shouldn't be that shocking because, talk about star power. I mean, this is one of the biggest movie stars in the world. He's got charisma just oozing out of his pores. Like, it's not shocking that Rock is overshadowing Roman, but Rock versus Cody has been where all the money's been made for me. Like, that, those are the ones that are really building up WrestleMania 40. And that's the more interesting match. Like, that's the one I want to see, Rock versus Cody, because that's what we've built up more. It would have been, if we could have foreseen all of this coming, it would have been maybe interesting if Rock took the title off of Roman and then Cody beat Rock, or doing something like that. But I mean, those two have been the ones doing the heavy lifting of the story. I mean, Seth has been involved in the periphery. Roman's been involved in the periphery. But to me, Rock versus Cody have been the two biggest stars in WWE on this run to WrestleMania.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're only going to get one of those matches.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't think we get both. Because, I mean, so what? We think... I've been trying to figure out how night one is going to end. Is Rock going to turn on Roman? Or is the Bloodline going to win?
Rock will be the reason why Roman loses the championship, I think. Yeah. Now, we're still a few weeks away before we have our official predictions, but I have the way that the Rock keeps looking at Roman. It's or vice versa, actually, because Roman is so insecure. He's always been that anyway. It's part of his character to be insecure. I am, on the top of the mountain in WWE. I'm the guy, but yet I still feel insecure. In Glendale, Arizona, there was Roman Reigns having to ask Rock, "Hey, Rock, can you just say that you acknowledge me as a tribal chief?" I mean, it's The Rock. You really need him to do that for you? You're so insecure because you kept asking Glendale, "Acknowledge me," and they're booing him. Like he hadn't had that in a while. He's been all over this world. "Acknowledge me." Cheers, right? Glendale?
Yep.
Not so much. Yeah. So, Rock, hey, by the way, can you do me a favor? Could you acknowledge me? You do that for me? I acknowledge you as a tribal chief. And then even still with that, Roman's still not sure. He still is not sure that his cousin won't turn on him. And so I believe that at some point there'll be a disconnect where Rock costs Roman the championship because of outside interference, because this is all going to be a mess. Night 2 of WrestleMania is going to be a mess.
Oh,
it's going to be wonderful. Like, here comes Appa, here comes Sika, here comes Tamina Snuka from catering. Here comes, guys from New Japan that are Samoan coming in. It's going to be crazy. But Cody wins, but Rock is going to be the reason why that Cody wins by mistake. And now you've got a setup here for those two, Rock and Roman.
Yeah, I'm 100% there with you. I just don't know how Rock is going to cost Roman. Ultimately, I think Rock and Roman probably win night one, and then Seth Rollins joins, the Miz as the only person to lose at WrestleMania twice in the same WrestleMania, because there's no way that Seth is winning the World Heavyweight Championship in my mind at this point, because Drew McIntyre is just on fire right now. But yeah, Rock versus Cody more interesting. But maybe because we haven't had that Rock turn yet. When Rock does turn, or Roman turns on the Rock, whatever way they end up doing it, maybe that's what really kicks that off and gets us excited about that. But I just thought this was more interesting because, again, those are the two that are doing the heavy lifting, because the Rock is just so like. I'm glad you brought up the promo, because that he did 21 minutes on. Because this guy is running over television, ran over again. Like that, clearly did not get out on time Friday night on SmackDown. They went 40 minutes the week before when they put him. Poor Hunter doesn't know what to do. Like, I put him out there first, he's going to go long. I put him out there last, he's not going to get out on time. What am I going to do? But you have to put him out there because he's Dwayne. But he's so into it. He's cutting 21-minute promos on his own time and releasing it on social media. Like, The Rock is super invested in this. And again, it's Cody. I mean, Cody is, because he's there every week, the face of the WWE. So he's the one always, having those retorts and those responses for The Rock. Those two have been doing the heavy lifting, which is why, to me, that's more interesting at this moment.
Gabe, what's your Fox affiliate? I should know in Milwaukee.
Fox 6.
Fox 6. I said Fox 8. You see that? It's close.
Yeah.
Fox 32 in Chicago gave us the entire thing right up to the slap. Do you know that there's some Fox affiliates that had to bail out because that's a hard out, as we say in the business, because everyone's got their local news.
Oh, yeah.
9 Central or 10 Eastern, whatever it is. And so there are some people that I heard from Sunday that asked, what happened? What do you mean, what happened? Like, what happened? There's people down south that on their Fox affiliate, like Little Rock, Florida. Hey, guys, thanks for taking my call on Busted Open, right?
Yeah.
Hey, what happened with the Rock and Cody in that thing? Rock and Cody in that thing. You didn't see what happened? Like, some are just out in the social media. They got their TV set. They're looking for a full 2-hour show, and they get cut off because it's the preview for the news at 58 after, right?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Preview spot, commercial, it's the local news. Well, like, I got it. The last thing I saw was a slap, and The Rock reacted to the slap, and then they went off the air. The slap in some affiliates, they didn't see it because of The Rock, because he won't stop. Yeah, I mean, you can tell if you go through social media, people in the arena, you could see the cameraman doing the roll-up sign, right? Like, let's go. Come on, guys. And Rock's like, nah, let's talk about cocaine again. let's talk about walking clown emoji again. Let's do that instead.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's...
Think about it, Gabe. Some people calling in asking,
what happened?
Hey, that whole thing at the end, what happened? You don't know? No, they went to the news. All right, well. I mean,
won't have to worry. Hey, won't have to worry about that when SmackDown's on USA and Raw is on Netflix. Don't have to worry about the run over. Hopefully, Rock is still around then, because you don't have to worry about the overrun at that point. So we do.
But here's the only thing you can do if you're Triple H. This is the only thing you can do, Gabe. You know what? We're taping this in the back, and we'll edit it down.
But you can't do that because Rock is too good in front of a live audience.
Sorry, man. Sorry. People, half the country can't see what's happening at the end. Sorry.
But you can't. You certainly can't put them out first, because then you're screwing over the rest of the roster.
It's amazing. But it's The Rock, right? It's a great.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Tell him stop? It's
No, because it's all great. Like, I'm not saying it's bad. It's just it's one of my favorite games now on SmackDown, and I can't wait for tomorrow night, because I'm sitting there looking at the clock, going, like, when they're leading off, they go 40 minutes deep. Like, man, I can't wait to see all the dirt sheets and what they had to cut from this show, because Bloodline went 40 minutes. And then again, last week, you're looking at the clock going, all right, I know this break is coming up. Clearly, Dwayne doesn't know or doesn't care. So you're just kind of like looking down at the clock, looking up at the screen, looking down at the clock. Like, no, there's no way he's getting out on time. It's one of my favorite games to play every week. Can Dwayne get out on time? The answer is obviously always going to be no, but maybe one of these days he'll figure it out. We are getting Bloodline a lot in WrestleMania. So number 2 this week on the 3 count. Is there anybody missing from the WrestleMania card? And I will update you. Here's what we have so far, just so everybody's on the same page. So we have Bloodline versus Cody and Seth, main eventing night 1. Seth versus Drew, Roman versus Cody, presumably main eventing night 2. Also, we have Io versus Bayley, Rhea versus Becky, Gunther versus Sammy, Judgment Day defending the tag titles in a 6-pack ladder match, opponents TBD.
Yeah.
Unconfirmed at this point, haven't been made official. Randy Orton versus Logan Paul, and Jimmy versus Jay.
So Chad Gable's not going to be in WrestleMania? You got to make that a 3-way dance. I mean, look, man. Chad Gable and Sami Zayn. I'll spoil it now. It's one of my matches of the week. Intercontinental Championship. Gunther versus Sami versus Chad Gable. Like, Chad Gable, I saw this bleary-eyed, 4 a.m. as we were getting ready for the morning show, and I'm seeing the interview that was done after Monday Night Raw with that sit-down that he had. It was it wasn't a wrestling interview. It was a sports interview. He was talking about his life and talked about it in a sports way. If you hadn't seen, I'm gonna send that to you because I know you've been away. It was a great interview Chad Gable had, and it's like when you hear him talk, Gabe, you're like, how do you keep Chad Gable out of that match? I mean, he busts his ass.
I was shocked as I really thought Chad Gable was going over in that match. I really did, because they've spent so much time telling his story, and they've spent so much in they're making you invest as a fan into again using the finish his story from Cody, right? But like they've set it up of, hey, this guy needs to get another shot at this Intercontinental Championship. He needs to get another shot at Gunther. And the other thing, I mean, clearly they want to protect Gunther. And this is why I thought that they were going to, instead of before they announced the gauntlet match, I thought that they were going to take all those challengers that were in the gauntlet match and turn that into a WrestleMania ladder match, because it would have been an easy way to protect Gunther. Like, Gunther's got to drop the IC championship here eventually so he can become what I think is the next step for him and a championship contender, whether that's the World Heavyweight or WWE Undisputed, whatever. But that's the next step for him. Like, he's one of the prominently featured people. And to protect him for that next push, you have him in a multi-man match. So either Sammy or Chad Gable eat the pin, or however you want to do it, and take the championship off of him. But like, man, they just, even being a huge Sami Zayn fan, something doesn't sit right with me about Chad Gable not being the one who's going to be facing Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship.
Somehow, some way, he should be in that match. So I think that's an omission. But I know that our partner Brian Rowitz probably was jumping up for joy with his kids in the living room, seeing that Sami Zayn is in the IC title picture. For God's sakes, as if he hasn't been over before. The reason why I'm pushing for Chad is because I want him to be over in that spot as a serious champion. Like, I won't do the lazy comparison to Kurt Angle, but what I will say is that guy has done the comedy and he's ready to break out, and he's a wrestler's wrestler, and we've seen this from time to time in the ring where he's serious and can compete. The first time we saw him against Gunther, I was convinced. I'm like, this guy here can get over as a character, as a champion. I think people would like it, but that's not the case. So, by the way, are we not getting Nia Jax at WrestleMania after all that work in?
Well, I mean, that's not even the biggest women's name that's missing right now. Are we doing anything with Bianca?
Well, it's a good question.
I mean, all they had for her on SmackDown on Friday night was a backstage segment with Naomi discussing whether or not they felt bad for Bayley. Like, that was it. That was it for Bianca. That was the only thing we saw from Bianca Belair. We're less than a month away from WrestleMania, and it doesn't seem like she's going to be on the card. Like, Nia Jax, to me right now, has more of a possibility of somehow being featured because of how prominently she's been on Raw and been involved with Liv Morgan and Becky Lynch. And that's a pretty prominent spot that those three have been occupying, and now is going to be in a last woman standing match on this upcoming Monday Night Raw. Like, she's been more featured and has had more TV time than Bianca Belair.
So you didn't say the Kabuki Warriors, right?
I did not. They do not have a match. So that's the only championship that, as of right now, is not being defended at WrestleMania.
Okay, so that's the pre-show.
Yep.
Kabuki Warriors against Naomi and Bianca Belair. Now, that sounds terrible for them to be on the pre-show because Bianca Belair is a star and she's on the cover of is it 2K four, and so we saw the promo between Naomi and Belair in which Naomi's like, I feel bad for Bailey, and Bianca's like, no, you weren't around, Naomi. You're in TNA. When I was here getting beat down by Damage Control, Becky's not a good person. This whole Damage Control thing, I would stay out of it. And Naomi's still like, oh, I don't know. I feel bad for Becky. And Bianca's like, whatever, but you weren't here. You didn't know. You didn't go through what I went through. And I feel like maybe those two could team up and somehow take on the Kabuki Warriors. I don't know. I just feel like since they're part of the their women's tag team champions, they should defend the titles. And that's the best way I could. That's the only path I see for Belair on the card.
Yeah. So, I mean, I had Naomi written down too because she was such a big return for WWE, and at the Royal Rumble, she was a big and hasn't really had much. She's had a TV match here or there. She was featured again, just a quick little backstage segment, on SmackDown this past week. And speaking of SmackDown, again, maybe it's because the bloodline has been, taking up so much of the time because The Rock has been there the last 2 weeks and he's going to be there again tomorrow night. But KO. KO is another one who's on the outside looking in of WrestleMania, which if you would have asked me after last year's WrestleMania, when KO and Sammy were in the main event of night one, which one of these two is probably going to miss, assuming everybody's healthy, which one of these two is going to be missing WrestleMania next year, who's not going to be on the card? Kevin Owens. It would have been, no, Sammy's going to miss KO. They'll find something for him because KO is always prominently featured when healthy. He has the KO Mania shirts. I'm sure those sell pretty well. And right now, there's nothing for him. He was in a tag match with Randy Orton, this last week, but he's got no feud going on. And I have a hard time seeing, especially in the era of Triple H, where he's trying to keep these cards pretty tight. He doesn't want to overbook them, wants to keep the cards tight. I mean, last year, they only had 13 matches booked going in. They ended up having 15 matches because they had 2 Miz impromptu matches on night one and then another on night 2. But they only had 13 for the 2 nights booked going into, and we're pretty close to that number already.
Yeah, not to criticize AEW, but WWE is not doing what AEW does, in which AEW puts 55 people on the card. If you don't put you in a battle royal. Well, everybody doesn't deserve to be on the card. However, I would say that if you've been prominently featured, especially on SmackDown and Raw, you've had these contender matches or you've been able to pop a rating, you deserve to have some kind of WrestleMania recognition. Now, a lot of this feels like Andre Battle Royal nonsense. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
But I think that some of these people we mentioned deserve better than that. I'll throw someone else in too. And unfortunately, you could just tell, Gabe, as soon as she came into the company, they were like, who have you worked with? QT Marshall. Oh, sorry, bell rang. You're not ready. Because everyone's waiting for Jade Cargill against Bianca Belair.
Oh, yeah.
But Jade's just not ready.
Well, and you can't throw her in there at WrestleMania if she's not ready, right? That's just, you just can't. And it seems like there have been so many false starts with Jade, right? When she first got there, and then, where's she going to sign? And she's being featured, and they keep doing all these different things, but and then she pops up on television again, but then goes away for a while. It just doesn't quite seem like they can quite figure out just what exactly they want to do with her, because they clearly still want to get her on television. They don't want people to forget about her, but also I don't know if they think, okay, maybe she's ready. Okay, maybe she's not ready. It just seems like they're a little unsure as well.
She needs an NXT run. That's what she needs.
Yeah.
She's got to work and do the WWE style. And because we all want that match. You didn't mention Santos Escobar, did you?
No, I did not. But I'm assuming Santos versus Rey. That's probably another good one to put under the unconfirmed. It's not an official match, but Santos versus Rey, I think certainly is going to end up happening at WrestleMania.
Because I also think that that whole group should have an opportunity to wrestle, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's just going to be Escobar and Mysterio, and that's going to be a good match. That could be a sleeper in one of the nights. People Ray still. I mean, it's amazing. And so I mean, I think that covers it as far as the wrestlers I'm thinking about. I'm going through the roster. We're going to get AJ against LA Knight. Looks like that's
clear. Yeah, that's another unconfirmed one to put on there, which again, with those that we've now listed, that's 11 matches, I believe. Let me recount here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah. So that would, if they have the same number of book matches that they did a year ago, that just only leaves room for potentially 2 more. And again, that's there's not a lot of room left, and there's not a lot of time left to really start building anything significant.
Yeah. So and some of these matches that we're talking about, they fit second, third, fourth in the card. They'll just slide them in. We know the main events, but this is what happens, Gabe, when you have the same number of wrestlers in the main event, right? Seth having twice, Cody having to wrestle twice,
Roman wrestling twice.
So, amazing. By the way, no Braun Breaker yet. Brock Lesnar's name is back on the WWE roster. What happened there? You didn't see that? Yeah, his name's back on the roster. So,
excuse me.
I don't know what that means.
Man, I disappear for 4 days. I take one vacation, Jay Hood. One vacation. The Packers get active in free agency. They put Brock Lesnar back on the roster. What's going on? I can never take vacation ever again.
Yeah, that's why you have 2 other partners. That's why it's all right. That's why we're here. cover it for you. When I'm in St. Louis looking for Sam Munchnick or looking for St. Louis wrestling, that's where I was. This is why you guys cover for me. Like that, he's back on the WWE roster online. Does that mean he shows up? I don't know. All I know
is
that's still. I could have swore there's still a story there with Vince, but I guess not.
Oh man, oh boy. I guess we'll put him on his name. Oh man. That'd be he shows up somehow in the schmozzy finish of whatever's going to happen with the bloodline. That's the only way he could potentially get involved, and that would still not be a good idea.
Sure.
This next one here, the number 3 in the 3 counts, Bryan Danielson. I am just fascinated by his, and it's a little bit different because it's not going to be the end of his career. It's the end of his full-time career where it seems like he's still going to be showing up and doing some part-time things. But it's just so interesting to juxtapose what he is doing versus Sting, because Sting did not lose a match in AEW. And, it was interesting to hear him talk in all these different interviews that he did. Initially they were just going to do cinematic matches with him, right? They thought that, I don't know if AEW kind of saw the cinematic match that Taker did with AJ Styles and thought, you know what? That's a good way for somebody like, in Sting's age bracket, we can kind of control everything. And then eventually it becomes, okay, he's going to do matches. He's doing these tag matches and it's only every once in a while, but he never lost a match on his way out. And I'm sure, again, there were reports before his last match that he wanted to lose, but Tony Khan and the Young Bucks said, no, you're not going to lose. Meanwhile, Bryan Danielson is setting up dream match after dream match for himself on the way out the door. Is he actually going to win one of these dream matches? Because I really thought for a second that he was going to beat Eddie Kingston. I thought that, all right, he'll be the Continental Classic champion or the Continental champion, whatever they're calling that trio of belts that Eddie Kingston's currently holding.
Yeah.
Okay, he'll have some championships, much like Sting on his way out. And yet Bryan Danielson just refuses to win any of these matches ever. And I just found it funny as a wrestling fan to juxtapose those two things where Danielson is just going to have dream match after dream match, and he's not going to win a single one of them.
He's bearded Dax Harwood. That's what he is, Gabe Neitzel. That's what he is. I told you guys a year ago, you laughed. I said, Bryan Danielson just wants to wrestle.
Yeah.
You think in this business you'd have like this big ego, like I want all the championships, and that doesn't work for me, brother. Like Hogan would say in WCW, I'm not sure that won't work for me, brother. I don't know if I want to take on Billy Kidman.
Well, and bringing up Sting, like, when Sting had that first big match against Hogan, when Sting, I guess I'm blanking on what they were calling. But yeah, like basically like Sting coming from the rafters and being that version of Sting, and the way that Hogan handled that and politicked his way for that match. Yes. So that's kind of what you're talking about, where Sting got screwed there, where Daniels is just like, no, you're going to beat me. No, I'm not going to win. I don't want championship. Me? No. Just a great match. I'll break my arm. Maybe I'll win, but then you'll get your win back. It'll be great.
Yeah. That's who he is, man. Crow Sting. The guy,
Crow Sting. That's what I was thinking of. Yes.
He lost the match because he didn't have a tan and didn't wrestle for a year. That's what Bischoff says. He didn't have a tan. That's why he lost. And then the slow count by Nick Patrick. But another story. So Bryan Danielson, it is interesting because you are correct. Here's Sting, who went out better than The Undertaker did in WWE. Mm-hmm. He did. Sorry, Undertaker embarrassed himself toward the end. The cinematic match made up for all the bad matches in Saudi and the kind of bad matches they have with Goldberg. Sting was a tag team wrestler. And by the way, at his age, he needed to be. Even though he did singles shit, like the stuff that you see in your backyards or your indies now, diving off the balcony, Sting did that at age 64. And I really appreciate everything that Sting has done. It is amazing. But the way he went out was like, yeah, I'm not coming back. I'm not going to be an agent for you. I'm not going to be a producer for you. I'm just gone. I had my last match in Greensboro. I drew the house, sold out because of me and my retirement. So long. And so that's cool. Bryan Danielson, though, and there's a difference between Sting and Bryan Danielson. Sting wanted to have some fun and trying to help Darby Allin push him up. That's the only reason why he stuck around, to bring that young man up. Other side, Bryan Danielson's still about the big bouts, man. He still wants to have these great matches. He's going to lose at Dynasty in April.
Oh, without a doubt. And it's going to be the match of the night. Like whenever our show is scheduled after that, we're going to have, we'll talk about that match, but what are our other matches of the week? Because those are just going to be the Danielson versus Ospreay is going to be the match of the night without a doubt.
No doubt. But those are two different paths. That's my point. Two different paths. Sting's still the old wrestler from 1986. We thought, at least I thought, that he would lose that match and go out the right way. He's so old school and so.
But he wanted to, but in the Young Bucks and Tony Khan pushed back on that and said, "Nope, we're not sending you out that way."
I mean, he's so kind and so giving, right? One of the good guys in wrestling left, and also Danielson, one of the great guys in wrestling as well. But for him to shake Eddie Kingston's hand, I kind of thought that Bryan would win that match, but he did it. The only reason why he did that match is because he's leaving, and he wanted to elevate Kingston even more so.
And then they had the emotional exchange backstage as they're both in the training room that they put on social media after Revolution, which was fantastic and continues to put Eddie over. Yeah, and Bryan is just trying to put over as many people as he can. And again, it's not his way out the door because he's still going to be around and probably still putting on these matches, maybe once, twice, 3 times a year, probably still not winning any of them. But, it's just funny to me to juxtapose those two of Tony Khan's like, no, Sting, we're putting you over. This is what we're doing. And with Danielson, he's like, fine, Bryan, you can lose. I can only imagine that he's just like beat down of Bryan Danielson. Oh, no, I'm not going to win this. No, are you crazy? Like backstage, I just only imagine that Tony Khan is just tired and just, okay, fine, whatever you want, Bryan.
I don't mind losing as long as I can kick his effing head off. All he cares about just kicking somebody's head off. And so that's who is now. He will lose a number of matches. He'll lose at Dynasty to Ospreay because Ospreay is the one that's on the rise in AEW and Danielson's on the way out. But the one match he will not lose will be the matchup against Nigel McGuinness at Wembley. That match has to happen.
Yes, correct.
Brother Gabe, that has to happen. You can't go out there week after week on Collision and call that man a clam digger, whatever that means. Call him a clam digger every week, not get your comeuppance. No. At some point, Danielson's going to look over like, Nigel. And I've got nothing, bro. Oh, I got nothing. Oh, no. How about you and me in London? Since you've been talking shit for over a year, about me being a clam digger. Again, don't know what that means.
I have no idea.
So that match has got to happen at Wembley. And then that's where Danielson gets over. That's where Danielson wins. He better win that match.
Hopefully, but again, with Bryan Danielson, you literally never know. Have no idea if he's actually. I mean, again, Ospreay, I know he's losing 100%. Don't care that he's losing because I'm going to get entertained when they wrestle at Dynasty. But yeah, you never know with Bryan Danielson. We move on to news and notes this week, where we begin with we'll start with WWE. They hit 100 million subscribers on YouTube, really touting it up on Monday Night Raw as well. More than the number of subscribers they have now worldwide, more than the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL combined, which is just bonkers in my mind. They are number 10 overall, have the 10th most subscribers on YouTube. People love wrestling, and wrestling is hot right now.
I can't wrap my head around the popular. I mean, we know that WWE is popular globally, but okay, now it's time for us to talk sports again. Okay.
Yep.
Now the NFL is great. Obviously, nothing beats the National Football League. Even as a college football fan, I know that nothing beats the NFL. We're talking about a 365, you and I, every day. We're talking something NFL, something Packers for you, something Bears for me. Both of us NFC North, the whole NFL. When you do ESPN radio, when I do around the NFL, it's all about so as far as that's concerned, in the United States, it's big. But the NFL's still not global. The NBA is global, but doesn't have the reach of the WWE. Look, it will go to London, it'll go to Mexico, it'll go to certain places, and people love basketball, Australia, everywhere. It's a global game. There's no question. Its popularity is huge. But the WWE, bigger than the NBA, bigger than the NHL, obviously, bigger than Major League Baseball, which is regional. The WWE, think about that. They don't even go to every part of the world all the time. They'll make a stop here. They had a nice Australia tour. They'll be in the UK. They'll be in France. But it's not like they're globetrotting around the world. Our big show, SummerSlam, Africa. And they're not. I mean, it's not that. But people want to reach out to the WWE on YouTube, and for them to get that mark, that is just amazing, amazing number. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's I like you said, I have a hard time wrapping my head around it, but obviously something they should. Again, you should be touting that on your television program because it is an insane accomplishment to have that many. Again, when you think about like the Super Bowl having over 100 million viewers, right? Like that's just all I have to do is turn on my TV. Like subscribing to a YouTube channel, like that's again awesome for everybody in the world of professional wrestling.
So NFL. WWE, if we were ranking them, I mean, look, when the NFL's against the WWE, NFL wallops them.
Yeah,
of course, ratings wise.
I mean, yeah, not in the U.S. it's the NFL, but obviously worldwide, like there's something to it. I think that's why Triple H, under his leadership, they're trying to go to more of these places and have that reach and have that touch. Yes, I don't think we're having a WrestleMania in Paris anytime soon, but to hit up some of the other PLEs, I mean, to go outside of your big five, right? Like your big five, you keep those in continental North America because you want to make sure you have the right audiences for those. But for some of these other ones, why not? Why not have one that's on super early? People can watch it. I mean, you already do it and make the money that they do when they go to Saudi Arabia twice a year. So keep having these other PLEs that aren't as significant as your big five and doing them other places. I think that's how they continue to grow that number that they have on their YouTube channel. From there to something a little bit more serious, and it's Kenny Omega as he opened up about his health. While he was streaming on Twitch, he kind of provided as he continues to deal with diverticulitis and said, quote, I would love to say, hey guys, I'm on track coming back next week, next month, half a year. I don't have that confidence at this time. I still said he's unsure if this condition is going to require him to undergo surgery, still touch and go. Said he felt good for a while, then had a setback, and he's just trying to figure out what this road to recovery looks like. Just an unfortunate, I mean, first of all, thank you to Kenny for opening up and just providing the update for fans, because this doesn't seem like it's an easy thing to talk about because he just doesn't have any answers right now.
Well, the best for Kenny Omega, because in the ring, he's pretty damn close to being unmatched based on everything that he does. His health is first and foremost. And, If I'm not mistaken, didn't Lesnar have the same thing? Did he have
Yeah.
he had the same thing and was able to beat that? So whenever Omega is healthy, I'm here to watch. We're all here to watch because we know how great he is. So all the best to him, that is for sure. Because I want him to get his comeuppance against the Don Callis family, if Callis is still around by then.
Yeah, well, and again, there's just with all these additions, like renewing some rivalries for him because he was in New Japan for so long. But with Okada, with Ospreay, like to have some of these matches again, but for a new American audience that maybe didn't see it the first time around. That I mean, I think there's a lot of potential there. So, but again, the health of Kenny Omega first and foremost is clearly the most important thing, and we hope he not only recovers but gets some answers soon, because I can't imagine that's an easy space to occupy when you love professional wrestling the way that Kenny Omega has, but now you don't have any answers as to when you can do it again.
Yes.
And then finally, news and notes, Jim Ross, good old JR, in his podcast, Grilling JR, thinks that this is going to be his last year behind the microphone, saying that it's realistic to think that way. He's 72 years old, but realistically, this could be my last year, more than likely will. That's to be determined, but this could be JR's final year as a wrestling announcer.
Yeah, JR said that he primarily will be on pay-per-views. So that means no Rampage, no Dynamite. He'll just be that special commentator on pay-per-views. At his age, I think that's fine. When Jim Ross is inspired, he's as good as anybody. There's times where you listen, you go, he's turned the clock back to like 2000, 2001, and when it's commentary. And I just think those sound bites are great because that guy has a lot of knowledge. As long as he's not complaining about flights or being there putting his barbecue sauce over and just focuses on the ring, I think he does a great job. He's been through a lot health-wise, my friend Jim, so all the best to him moving forward. A couple of other news and notes. We found out today that Jackie Crockett from the Crockett family passed away. Jim Crockett Jr. was instrumental in keeping the NWA together for a long time in those classic years of Ric Flair and the Funks and Dusty Rhodes and all that. The brother, Jackie Crockett, a longtime cameraman and worked in the front office, passed away today, and he's going to be buried in Bristol, Virginia. So condolences there. Also, we don't talk ratings on this show. This is the wrong podcast for that. But I will mention that with Mercedes Moné coming out, the show peaked at 1 million viewers. So you could just tell the crossover of WWE fans, wrestling fans in general, were just curious to see what that looks like with Mercedes in that first quarter hour. So it peaked at 1 million viewers, which again is a positive and says a lot about Mercedes and what she's been through with her injuries and now back on the scene.
Yeah, that's always good news for her and AEW, certainly. But that brings us to this. If you can, limit your matches to just 3. And this is, but this is honestly one of my favorite parts of the show is trying to limit it to 3 because we can't. We have had a hard time limiting it to just 3 apiece each and every week. Like this started as what was your match of the week. We've had to expand it because the wrestling's been so damn good in ring over the last 12 to 18 months, Jay Hood. So matches of the week.
Darby Allin versus Jay White on Dynamite.
Yep.
And only reason why is because of the story that was told. And it's a true story. Darby Allin's back is jacked up. It's probably glass that's still lodged in his back. And so he's taped up. You knew it's like a bullseye on his back. And the story is, how could Jay White exploit that? And he did that over and over and over again on Darby Allin. The story, it's not a classic match. It's just that the story is Allin's banged up. Jay White, who I love in singles matches, were able to dominate Darby Allin that match.
The back bump that he took, trying to do the coffin drop, and then just like, what are we doing, Darb? Like, come on, bud. Like, you're supposed to climb Everest soon. Like, but it's hard to complain because he does it for our entertainment.
Yes, but I don't want him to die on Dynamite. So now he's going to climb.
That would be preferred.
In that promo that we heard a couple weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
Almost as if, hey, man, I might die. So thank you, Tony Khan, and thank you, AEW fans. So long. Like, what do you mean? That's I didn't like the way that sounded. It's real.
Die.
It's real.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, again, some of these guys need to be produced. Darby Allin pretty much giving his death statement out there on a wrestling show is not cool. It just isn't.
So I also had Jay White versus Darby written down. To stick with AEW, I will say Joe versus Wardlow. I really enjoyed. I mean, I think there's something still left in the tank there. If they do a pay-per-view match, I think there's something still there. But I like the way that, again, the story at the end was Wardlow got too confident and then got himself caught in a Kikina clutch, and you know ended up passing out and ended up losing the match. I like the way that those two really interacted in the ring with each other. Wardlow going off the top rope was insane, but I also like the way that they told the story of the end of the match. Of Wardlow, oh, I got this now. I'm going to start showing off. Whoops. I just got choked out.
I got pissed off at this match at one point of the booking of the match because I thought that Wardlow was pushed too quickly. Like he had the promos of his life, and all of a sudden he gets in the ring, he has a title match, and I thought, Hood, you don't have to be pissed off because the WWE can do this at times as well. We've seen Drew McIntyre in a position where you think he should win and he loses. We've seen Gable in a situation, IC title match, and he loses. You say, that guy should be over. Wardlow has been start and stop in his company so often, and I really thought that this match was too soon. But you know what? He'll come back around again for Wardlow. I just hate for him to have all that momentum, the promos of his life, and then lose on TV in Boston the way he did. But maybe he'll come back around. But I can't criticize AEW if WWE does the same thing with guys we believe in or women.
And I guess I just with Wardlow, it seems like, again, with the way that the match ended, again, it's a little subtle thing, but it's like, hey, he still can compete. And I don't think he's going anywhere just because I think that the Undisputed Kingdom is going to be well placed on AEW. Like, I don't think he's going to get lost in the shuffle and end up briefly being tag champs with Big Bill, like maybe some other people have.
Where has he been, by the way?
Yeah, exactly.
These guys disappear off my TV. Gauntlet match, I said to you earlier, Sami Zayn against Chad Gable. Just as Gable's telling Zayn, stand up, let's go. Like, I know you're beat down from these other previous matches. Let's go. Let's fight. And it was great. Again, don't agree with the finish, but it was still a good match.
Yeah, it was a fantastic match. I loved every step of the way with that. I thought it was a lot of fun. Whenever, not that they need to be doing gauntlet matches all the time, but usually when WWE dips their toe in the gauntlet match, for the most part, I think they hit it out of the park. And I think that, again, I was surprised at the ending, but I thought it was a fantastic way to end Raw. And it's not a bad way to spend the third hour of Raw, right? Like, a lot of times the show feels like it can drag. Well, you put on a really entertaining gauntlet match for 40, 45 minutes, and I think that's a good use of time there. Speaking of Raw, I had Becky versus Liv Morgan. I know at times you have questioned, and I feel like Liv is building a little bit of a momentum right now. But I thought the match that they ended up having and kind of the little, triangle storyline that they've been telling between Becky and Liv and Nia Jax has been fun on Raw, and that was just a fun match that they put
on. While you're away, I was watching TNA Sacrifice from Windsor, Ontario. That's on the Fight app, or it's called Fight app. It's called
presented by Triller or something.
Triller. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
TV. Hammerstone against Josh Alexander for Sacrifice was the best match I thought on the card. Steve Macklin took on Nick Nemeth as well on TNA Sacrifice. So a couple good matches there. TNA is starting to build very well, and so I thought those matches were good. I'll leave you with this. Here's a match that was not match of the week. And by the way, Gabe, I'm not going to criticize you if you fast forward through it to try to get prepared for the show. But
sure.
But we have to talk about, just briefly, Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell against.
Oh, yep.
Did you fast forward through it, or did you watch?
I did not. So I watched that because so I've been on vacation, got back today, but I had seen on social media like the Candice LeRae, like, oh, what's going on here? And so I had kind of seen what happened. So I wanted to watch the entire match to see how Indy reacted and just kind of see everything else that happened around it. Because again, on social, I saw the brief clip of her going at Maxine Dupree. But yes, that we can certainly talk about that because that's an interesting twist I think for someone we know who we've known for a long time has been good in the ring, but since she's come back to WWE and has been on the Raw roster, has been drifting a little bit. This gives her character some direction and some unexpected direction.
I don't understand why you need a cheap heat in that spot. All right, so for those that did not see it, so there is Maxine Dupree that's going to do this big wiggle spot, and Candice LeRae cuts her off and goes, "Oh, we're not going to do that move. No. You think we're going to take that move?" Which is a wrestling insider term. We're not taking that move, meaning I know that's your spot. We're not taking that spot. That's usually what you talk about in the back, right? What do you want to do out there tonight? Well, I was thinking I was going to do a side headlock and step over toe hold, and I'm going to do a big wiggle. Big wiggle. I ain't taking that spot. So she says that on the mic, but again, the crowd doesn't know.
The crowd has no idea what she was saying.
Not right.
So that was the first thing that when I watched it back today was, how did the crowd react to this, and how the hell would the crowd know what's going on?
There's a hot crowd in Houston too, and then good wrestling town. And then he's like, and so Candice LeRae tells Maxine Dupree, "I'm not taking that spot." And then Candice goes on to browbeat Maxine Dupree, like, "Do you understand why people don't like you on the internet? Do you understand why people boo you?" And all this stuff. And then she goes into saying, "You know who would be ashamed of you? Your dead brother," which is a real story about her brother passing away at age 22. Well, wait a minute. And so again, the crowd doesn't hear any of this. The TV audience picks it up. You don't hear from Cole. You don't hear from McAfee. It's just they're nice and low where you can hear the commentary. And then Dupree's all like, "What the hell's going on? I'm getting out of here." She was going to leave. And then there's an elbow smash by Indy Hartwell. And then 1, 2, 3. It is the worst thing I've seen from WWE all year. Because here's the thing. That doesn't build up Maxine Dupree. What they did is they tweaked the audience, because if you saw this on social, it was like the coconut circuit. Wherever Maxine Dupree was wrestling, people were booing Dupree saying, "You suck, you can't wrestle, get out of here." So you can see the WWE is kind of trying to play into that. But again, it's Candice LeRae. Now you want to get sympathy on the babyface, beat Maxine Dupree 52 weeks a year, and then her big match would be against Candice LeRae, and then she beats LeRae. Like, that's old school wrestling. You feel bad about Dupree because she loses every match until she takes on LeRae. Then she beats LeRae. Now you got a baby face. Now you're developing a star. But to talk about her personal issues, about her brother dying, and then talk about the internet buzz and all that, it was just such a bizarre segment that you didn't need for someone who's underneath. Maxine Dupree will never be a superstar on top of the WWE to me. So I don't even know why you do that.
Well, so to me, I looked at it as, yes, you use the word cheap heat, yes. But also you look at this women's roster on WWE, outside of Damage Control and Rhea Ripley, and I guess Nia Jax now, like, you don't have a lot of heels. Like, it's just a lot of these kind of tweeners who maybe they're heels. Most likely they're probably baby faces. They don't have a lot of these heels. So I don't know if this was a way to try to establish more of a balanced women's roster, but it was, again, it got my attention for Candice LeRae because I feel like she's just been kind of drifting aimlessly ever since she came back to WWE.
Her dead brother, huh? You need that to get over? Come on, brother.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe Hunter saw all the dead mother or the dead father stuff that Christian is doing, and like, oh, dead relatives are in. Let's get on that train.
If Candice LeRae goes on a stream of going through the roster, finding out, do you have a dead relative? Do you have a dead mom? Dead dad? Dead sister? Dead brother? You know what? I'll use that. Oh my God. Could you imagine?
Just steal Christian's gimmick.
It's like, so dark at a very unopportune time. I'm like, that's just some cheap Southern wrestling heat there. And then the idea that Maxine Dupree's like, I'm leaving. It's just too but she loses from an elbow smash.
Look, I was caught off guard by like the no one thinks you can wrestle thing, because I thought they were. I mean, they did kind of tell that initially when she joined Alpha Academy, after the the model thing didn't really work out. She was the manager for the models after she took over that position from LA Knight because that didn't work out for him.
Yeah.
And but they started building her up as a wrestler because she's in the Alpha Academy. Chad Gable, Master Gable, showing her how to wrestle. So that revisiting that was kind of an interesting thing.
Bizarre. WWE, everybody.
When you got 3 hours to fill, Jay Hood, sometimes weird stuff just kind of gets through. We only have an hour to fill, and we usually go over that hour. So, weird stuff still kind of, trickles through from time to time. Check us out again. If you're listening to this podcast, if you checked it out on social media, check us out on YouTube, comment, subscribe, join the program, have a lot of fun. YouTube.com/@GoodKarmaWrestling. It's going to be a fun show next week. It's going to be a fun week of professional wrestling. Can't wait to talk to you. Can't wait to do it again next week right here on GKW.